The courtroom buzzed with the usual low murmurs of a Monday morning docket. Attorneys shuffled papers. Bailiffs glanced at their watches. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a pale glow on the polished oak furniture. But when Judge Martha Whitmore entered, the room fell into a rehearsed silence, as if gravity itself had shifted. She sat high on the bench in her black robe, her features stern, eyes sharp beneath silver-rimmed glasses. Her reputation preceded her, unyielding, harsh, and unapologetically biased. Across the courtroom, a man stood quietly, tall and composed. His dark gray suit was perfectly tailored, his shoes polished to a mirror shine. He stood with his hands calmly clasped behind his back. His name was Elijah Brooks. Judge Whitmore looked down from her elevated bench and scoffed. "A man like you doesn't belong here," she said with disdain. "Unless you're here to polish the floors." There was a pause so thick you could have sliced through it. Elijah didn't flinch. He simply offered a small smile, measured and calm. It wasn't the first time he'd heard something like that, but it would be the last time anyone said it to him without consequence. The judge leaned back, assuming her comment had landed like all her others over the years. But within exactly 7 minutes, everything about her world would change. Elijah had been waiting for this day for over a decade. He had grown up in the same city, just a few blocks from the courthouse where he now stood. His younger brother, Marcus, had been a straight-A student, kind-hearted and soft-spoken. One night, Marcus had been arrested during a fight outside a gas station. No weapon, no fingerprints, security footage that mysteriously vanished. Still, Judge Whitmore had given him 15 years in state prison. Elijah had tried to fight it. He begged for an appeal, presented character witnesses, brought forth alibi evidence. But Judge Whitmore had rejected it all without a second glance. The day of that sentencing, Elijah had made a vow. He would find a way to bring her down. Not with rage, but with facts, with law, with truth. And now he was here. Judge Whitmore narrowed her eyes. "Mr. Brooks, I assume you're here with another frivolous lawsuit?" He remained calm. "No, Your Honor." "Let me guess," she continued, her voice dripping sarcasm, "you're suing the city for discrimination? Claiming racism where there is none?" A few chuckles echoed from the gallery. Elijah didn't look back. He never did. He simply stepped forward and opened his briefcase. "I'm not here to file a lawsuit, Judge Whitmore," he said smoothly. "I'm here on federal business." She rolled her eyes. "What could you possibly know about federal law?" Elijah turned to the court clerk. "Is the audio recording active?" The clerk, a young woman in her early 20s, hesitated, then nodded. "Good," Elijah said, and slid a sealed envelope to the bailiff. "Please deliver this to the bench." The courtroom watched as the bailiff walked the envelope up to the judge and set it before her. She frowned, tore it open, and read the document inside. Her face began to shift. Subtle at first, then more visible, a twitch of the lip, a furrow of the brow. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. "What kind of joke?" Before she could finish, Elijah reached into his jacket and pulled out a gold badge. "Federal Investigator, Civil Rights Division. Badge number 48126, he said calmly, holding it up for the room to see. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Someone dropped a pin. Judge Whitmore paled. This is absurd. You can't just barge into my courtroom." Elijah cut her off. "Correction. This is no longer your courtroom, Judge." He turned to the door. "Bring them in." 2 federal agents in dark suits entered. Their presence was immediate and undeniable. They walked with precision, stepping up to the bench. The judge stumbled back slightly, gripping the edge of her desk. "You're serious?" she asked, voice cracking. Elijah didn't blink. "You are hereby charged with obstruction of justice, judicial misconduct, and racially motivated sentencing violations under Title 18 of the United States Code." One of the agents began reading her rights aloud. "You've presided over 427 criminal trials in the past 12 years, Elijah continued. Of those, you sentenced black defendants to an average of 23% longer prison terms for similar offenses compared to white defendants. In over 37 cases, you denied appeals without reviewing exculpatory evidence. In multiple instances, including my brother's, you suppressed key testimony." "I had no idea," she stammered. "I was just following the law." "No, Judge Whitmore," Elijah said, stepping closer. "You were following your prejudice." He placed a photograph of Marcus on the evidence table. "My brother served 10 years for a crime he didn't commit. He lost his 20s, his college degree, his chance at starting a family, all because you refused to see his humanity." The judge's knees weakened. She reached for her chair. "This is a mistake," she said, barely audible now. The agents stepped behind her. One reached for the cuffs. "No," she gasped. "Please, not in here. Not in front of—" But the cuffs clicked shut. The gallery was dead silent. Then someone stood. A mother who had once pleaded for mercy from Judge Whitmore. Then another, an older man with graying hair whose grandson had been sentenced harshly. And then a young woman who had sat in juvenile detention for 18 months for a nonviolent offense. Slowly, the room erupted into applause. Not of celebration, but of relief, of justice, of truth finally being seen. As the judge was led out, her head down, Elijah stood firm. He looked not at her, but at the people, the community, the survivors. Outside, the courthouse steps were flooded with reporters. Cameras pointed. Microphones reached out. Elijah stood tall. One little boy tugged at his sleeve. He had wide eyes, full of wonder. "Are you a real hero?" the boy asked. Elijah knelt down. "I'm just someone who didn't stay silent," he said. He pulled out a small photo, Marcus in a graduation cap. This was for him. A reporter called out, "Mr. Brooks, what do you say to those who claim change is impossible?" Elijah faced the camera directly. "I say this: never let power go unchecked. Never let hate wear a robe. If someone tells you that you don't belong, prove them wrong. I'm not a judge." But today, justice was served. And he meant every word. Inside that courtroom, the tables had turned. Not through anger, not through violence, but through persistence, through preparation, and through the kind of courage that refuses to be silenced. Elijah had spent years studying, training, and gathering the evidence. Every late night of law school, every long shift in field work, every hour poured into research, all of it had led to this moment. Not for revenge, for restoration, for dignity, for Marcus. In the weeks that followed, a federal review board expanded their investigation. Several other judges across the state were flagged for their sentencing patterns. Whispers turned into conversations. Conversations turned into reforms. Local leaders began pushing for transparent data collection, anonymous jury reviews, and automatic appellate reviews in sentencing discrepancies. The system didn't change overnight, but the ripple had begun. And Elijah? He declined interviews on national news. He turned down book deals and podcasts. Instead, he opened a legal foundation in his brother's name, the Marcus Initiative for Justice. Its mission: provide resources, mentorship, and pro bono representation for families fighting wrongful convictions. Sometimes Elijah would sit outside the small office they'd opened downtown, watching the kids walk by after school. Some days they stopped to say hello. Some called him Mr. Justice. Others just waved. He always smiled. One afternoon, the little boy from the courthouse came by again. He held a notebook full of sketches, lawyers, courtrooms, capes. "Mr. Brooks," he asked shyly, "do you think I could be like you someday?" Elijah looked down, then up, eyes warm. "No," he said. "You'll be better." And with that, he returned to work. Quiet, focused, relentless. Because justice, once awakened, does not sleep again.